So in this video, we're going to put together a special little gift box for Dad. I guess it doesn't have to be for Dad. It can be for any professional or someone that travels or anything really that comes to mind and is appropriate for your occasion. But this one is designed specifically, initially, for Father's Day, which is why we've included a little dad sentiment on the front of it. But obviously you can omit that and make it for any occasion. So let's take a look at what we have here. And well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just spend some time putting our little panels onto our main structures here, okay? So let's just start with what will ultimately end up being the actual lid, okay, that opens up and closes. And no two pieces are alike here, so you really can't confuse anything, so to speak. But we're going to grab this piece, and this is actually, I think, a Cricut fabric material that we cut, and it's actually really thick, and I don't think I've really worked with this material in the past, so we'll see how it goes. But we're going to start just gluing stuff down flat, working flat while we can. Now with this, I don't mind kind of going a little heavy on the glue because it is a fairly thick material and it's not going to warp like some paper, and actually may need a little extra glue on this just to ensure that it sticks. But all of these panels, when we put them down, you want to make sure that we leave a nice even border around the entire perimeter. Okay, and again, this is my first time working with this material, so I don't see why we're going to have any problems with it, because it's, you know, it's actually well, very porous, so it should stick maybe even better than paper on paper. We'll see. We'll see what the verdict is. But that is our first piece. This is our next piece, and I think for the most part, even without a video, as far as this stuff goes, putting these panels on, I think you'd be able to figure this out. But we're going to hang out and get this done together today. So again, I'm kind of caking the glue on here, and just want to make sure that this just sits in place nicely for us. So this is the exterior panel here. Now what we're going to do to keep this thing closed is we're going to use a little bit of cord, like an elastic cord, and this piece here that looks like this, we're going to use that to actually sandwich the cord in between, okay? So we're going to use this later on once we get to that, get to that point, okay? Now here is another, this is actually a basketball pattern, but it totally works for this, this briefcase. So we're going to get that glued down, and this is also a very, very thick material. So this is going to end up being pretty, not bulky, but heavy and sturdy. It's going to have a lot of mass, I guess, if I want to get scientific about it. But let's go ahead and get our glue on this piece here. Now you'll notice that there are two little slits here, and you just want to make sure that when you're placing this, that you're not obstructing the little slits that are built into the actual structure there. And I'm lifting this up so I can actually see the light through it, just to ensure that I'm getting it, well, getting it placed correctly. And that seems to be good. If you're a tiny little bit off, it's not a big deal, because the little handle that we're putting through there is only going to be, well, just one thickness of paper. And I think we've allowed for a little bit of error there. Okay, so that is the lid portion, and that is all set. We're going to just pop that off to the side and let that simmer. Okay, now this is the front of our little briefcase. Now this basketball paper, I actually took like a reddish brown, and I kind of inked it just to kind of make it look a little distressed. Now another thing too, you'll notice on the front here, there's a series of little score marks, and those are to help you with the placement of these pieces, just so that we get them in the exact spot. And now for this piece here, you're going to use these little guides in the corners. They're kind of rounded quarter circles if I had to kind of describe them. So let's grab our glue. Let's grab our glue and get it on here. And stuff's really, really absorbing my glue, so that's how I know I need to maybe throw a little more than usual on there. Okay, again, using the guides here on the bottom corners, I'm going to hold it like so, just to get its initial placement, and then drop the other one in place. That looks good. Just kind of smooth that out. And for whatever reason, when we add a little bit of bulk to these structural pieces, I feel like they're a little bit easier to work with. Okay, next piece here, we're gonna, you'll notice that there are two little score marks here where these little pointy tips are going to rest. So let's get our glue on this piece. These are pretty large pieces, so you gotta kind of work quick so that the glue doesn't dry out. And luckily, I don't have to be amazingly accurate and consistent with my glue pressure here, because this is a thicker material. Now, you may not be using a thicker material, in which case you want to be a little more careful, but I kind of hit the jackpot here, and I can kind of breeze through it. Okay, so I'm looking at those little markers there that are on the blue piece to help me with the alignment. And that kind of looked like it was going to be good, but you always want to just double check your work and kind of nudge things around. Take a look at the borders, make sure everything's nice and even. And down here we have just kind of a natural border that's created by the little gaps between these two elements. Okay, so that is that. You can go ahead and put that off to the side and let that simmer a little bit too. And now we'll take the back, and the back is just this one piece, and we also have some little indicators here to help you with the alignment of this piece as well. So let's get our glue. All right, so let's get our glue on this last piece here before we start actually doing some assembly. And this is definitely an interesting sort of paper. Okay, again, using these little reference points, these little guides here on the bottom left and right corner to help us get it nice and aligned. I'm going to place that down, and then also just kind of take a look at the borders on the left and the right and just kind of nudge things or adjust things as necessary to make sure that everything is nice and horizontal and vertical. Okay, here we go. All right, now there's no other piece that goes here, because ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to glue this piece down right here. Okay, so that I'm going to do that later on. Okay, now one other thing we can do while we still have this flat is attach our little gift card holder. Now, I just made a mistake, but I can kind of fix it, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. The brad, you're going to want to put the brad through the little gift card holder thing and bend the two little metal parts of the brad over before we glue the actual gift card holder down. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible to get it in there. So get the brad through the hole first, and now we're going to go back to the step where I actually glue this down. Okay, so make sure you do that first. And I've already kind of folded everything at the score marks here. Now, the gift card holder does have a nice little piece of gold trim that we're going to glue onto this. And you know what, I think we can do that after the fact here. So let's just get this glued on first. So the way that this is going to work is you're going to take your tabs and fold them in, and we're going to grab our glue and add some glue onto this paper here. And I'm going to do a nice little line right along the very edge. I'm going to spread that nice and thin out to the very edge of this paper so that it sits nice and flush and nice and clean. Now remember, this is our front. That's where our gift card's going. Oh, also, and don't do this because I just messed up. There's this one little piece like this. It's like a little donut. We're gonna glue this to the inside of this just to kind of help strengthen this little hole where our brad is gonna go eventually. Okay, so make sure you get that in place and then put your glue on these tabs. And on the front of this piece here, you're gonna notice a set of score marks, and those score marks are to help you with the alignment of the little gift card holder. So go ahead and get that in place and press that down. Hopefully my glue is still tacky enough to where it'll hold, otherwise I'm gonna have to fix that. Okay, so we only had the glue on the tabs, which still gives us, still gives us the use of the pocket, which is exactly what we want. And then of course we have the little gold trim piece. So I'm just gonna put some glue all along this gold trim piece here. And make sure that that's nice and flush with the top. Pardon my head for a second. And then just glue that down. Make sure it's nice and aligned with the left and the right side as well. And just hold that down in place until it sits and rests nice and flush against the little pocket. Okay. Okay, so our gift card holder is in place. And you know, one other thing that we can do before we start assembling all this is get our little dad tag on here. So the dad tag is made up of these three pieces. The solid color without any cutouts is going to be your backmost layer. So I'm going to take my gold layer and I'm going to get that glued into place. Okay, and just pop that right on there. Okay, and now we can take the other blue layer here that has the word dad cut out, and we'll get that glued down. And we're going to want to center this. This is not the same size as the rest of them, so kind of take a look at the rest of the cutouts here and just try to get that nice and aligned so that it looks correct as far as the word goes and the letters go. Just do your best to center it, basically is what I'm saying. So there you go, that looks good. And now this is actually going to go onto the front here. So remember, this is the back, this is the top, this is the front of the lid for our little gift box. And that's going to go right on the front. And what I would do is just kind of center it and use these lines here where the handle is going to go as kind of a guide to help you with the positioning and the centering of this piece. Okay, so just get some glue right there in the center. Bring it up from the bottom, down from the top so that it's nice and centered that way, and also try to get it between the little handle slits there as well. And I think that looks pretty good. Pardon my head for a second. There we go. And just give that a press. Okay. And also, might as well do this. There's 7 little, well, buttons, or what are they even called? I'm not even sure what they're called. But anyway, you've got 7 of these large circles, 7 small ones. We're going to take the small one and glue it to the larger one. So I'm just using my little pick-me-up tool to help me pick up this little piece and just get that right in the center of the other one. And you're going to have 7 of these. I've already created a bunch of them. I've created all 6 of them actually. Okay, and 2 of these are going to go right onto the sides here. So I'm just going to grab this and get this glued real quick while I can. Just like to work flat whenever possible. Okay, so that is going to go, and I'm trying to see if there are any markers for this. There are actually. There are some markers here on these pieces to help you with the positioning so that we get everything nice and lined up and even. Okay, I'll grab another one for the other side. And there's a few that are going to go on these little bands that go or that wrap around the base of our little briefcase here. So we're not going to put those on just yet because those need to be put on after we put the bands on, but the box needs to be assembled before we can do that. So that is that, and then there's going to be one more that we can actually put on right on the back here. So let's do that. I got a little way too much glue on there. Just going to rub some of that off. And there is also, or there are also some guides here on the back to help you get that nice and centered and positioned correctly. Okay, so there is the lid. And as far as the rest of these buttons go, there's 4 more. We're going to save those for a later step. But at this point, we are now ready to assemble the actual structure itself. It's going to be pretty straightforward. So we're going to grab our 2 pieces here. And this is the top. Okay, this is the top, this is the bottom. And the first thing we need to do is connect these 2 sides together. And we're going to do that using this large tab here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get our glue onto this tab, and then also a nice fine line right along the edge. And you know what I'm noticing is that despite how thick these materials are, if you overdo it on the glue, you can kind of see a little bit of warping. It's not horrible, but just be careful if you're using that stuff. I don't use that stuff a lot. Okay, anyway, get that nice and lined up. Okay, just kind of butt that up against those score marks, and then also make sure that the top, you can kind of follow the little score marks here at the top and the bottom, just to make sure that you've got everything in line. Give that a press. Okay, and then we can kind of fold it over onto itself and then press down here again, just to make sure that that is nice and solid. Okay, and then we can take and fold this over onto itself again. Now remember, there's a brad back here, so you got to be kind of careful there. But we're going to get this glued down. So let's throw some glue on this tab here. And a nice fine line right up to the very edge. Let me spread that out, right out to the very edge. There we go. And we can do this flat. Just drop that other side onto this piece here. Make sure everything's nice and aligned. And pardon my head. There we go. Give that a second. Don't push over here where the brad is. Got to be kind of careful so we don't dent or crease the paper. And we'll just press that down. Give that a few seconds to set, and then we can kind of flip it over so that the edge of that seam is on the edge. And give that another press. Okay. All right, so let me just get rid of this. Just move it out of the way, the top. I'm going to flip it over like this. And we're going to close up the bottom here. So let's get our glue on these tabs here. My glue bottle is just being being a meanie. I don't know why. All right, and again, nice little fine line along the edge here. All right, and then as always, I want that seam to be nice and clean, and also make it dry quicker with less potential for warping. All right, make sure it's nice and straight, and take the anchored side here. Bring these up just a tad, and then bring this down, and just focus on trying to get this side opposite of where it's already hinged in place and aligned properly, because usually when you do that, the rest of it just kind of falls into place. And then once that happens, just run your finger along the perimeter here and make that nice and smooth. You can flip it over then. Grab a dowel or something. I'm gonna grab my dowel and I can push from the inside. Kind of help make that stick a little bit better. There we go. Okay, and now before we close this up, I'm gonna flip this out. We've got this little piece here. This is a liner. Okay, so go ahead and throw a little bit of glue onto the inside here. It doesn't matter if it's neat or not, because we're gonna pop this in and cover that up. There's actually no tabs down there, but it will help make this a little more structurally sound, which is really why we did that. Excuse me. Okay, and now what we can do is we can take this and glue that down like so. So what we're gonna do is we can do one at a time here. I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on this tab here, like this, and then also on this tab here, and that glue just really squirted out like crazy. All right, we're gonna pop that on top of the tab, like so. And then also kind of squeeze the back here, like that, to get that lined up and in place. And repeat on the other side. And I'm not concerned about getting that glue out to the edge. Actually, you know what? I should be. I want that to sit nice. There we go. All right, and flip that down, bring that tab in, like that. Give that a little squeeze, and then a squeeze back here. Make sure that's nice and aligned. Give that a second to set. All right, so there is our base structure, okay? And what we can do at this point is, well, we can grab these pieces here. Make sure I got the right one here. I do. Okay, these pieces here, you'll notice, have little score marks here. And I'm probably gonna hit this with some ink because it is a white core and I see a little bit of white showing through there. I'm gonna fix that up in a little bit here. But these little pieces here, these are symmetrical, meaning they're the same size on both sides. And the way this works is these are gonna wrap around like this. And you'll notice that there are two little score marks here to help you with the vertical placement of these little pieces, just so that we can make sure that everything stays nice and well, symmetrical and everything mirrors nicely. So I'm gonna put glue on the middle part, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the front part here and I'm gonna align that first right up to the little corner. Just make sure that that is nice and centered, and when it is, then I can take the piece that I have the glue on and set that onto the side, like that. Okay, so that's in place, and now I can peel this back, and I can get my glue on this piece. Make sure you get that glue out to the very edge of this piece, right all the way up to the very edge, and then you can fold it over and press and hold that down. We're going to put another button on here in just a moment, like that. There's actually some score marks there to help you with the placement of that. Okay, and now of course we need to flip this over and glue the other side down. Again, make sure you get that glue out to the very edge. We don't want that part peeling back and falling off or getting snagged on something or whatever it may be. There we go. Okay, so there we go. That looks nice. And we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. So I'll show you that one more time. We're going to begin by putting our glue on the inside here, the center part between the score marks. Okay, and just like I did before, let's use this part here to help us get it centered. and then we can take and apply it to the side. And that's going to make sure that everything is nice and on the same plane, so to speak. All right, so we can peel this back now. Get our glue on here, all the way out to the very tip there. I'm gonna kind of do that and push that down and into place. And then just go ahead and glue down the other side as well. Okay, so that is pretty much done. Now we're gonna just grab our remaining 4 buttons here and get those glued into place. Just a tiny little dot of glue will do. And again, look for the little score marks here to help you with the placement. They're towards the end of these little belt pieces. I'm not all too familiar with the different parts of a briefcase, so pardon my lack of knowledge on that, but there we go. I'll grab the other one, and sometimes with this kind of paper, it helps to maybe just kind of tilt and rotate the paper a little bit to help locate and identify where those little score marks are. Okay, we're going to dress this up with some pearls, I think, just to make it pop even more. But we are going to add 2 more onto the back as well, just to kind of... We love our detail here at Dreaming Tree. There we go. And 1 more. And there we go. Okay. So our little buttons are in place. The front of it is looking good. There we go. Okay. Well, that just leaves our little handle. Okay. And now with this, again, this is like a fabric. If you're using paper, it's going to be a little bit easier. You should be able to identify where the little score mark is. Okay, because the top part, and then in this case, this is going to be my top part, that's going to get glued to the top like this. Okay, and this part here, we're going to glue these 2 together in the center like so, but the underside is going to go underneath the inside here. It's going to get glued to the inside. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And I am going to just have to make sure that what I'm doing is I'm taking these 2 pieces and I'm kind of bending them opposite ways so that the the sections that are beyond the score area are not touching each other, because we're not gluing these together, but we are gluing these 2 sections together. Okay, so now again, this material is a little bit tricky, so I'm going to do my best here and just make sure that I've got it properly aligned. Okay, so I'm just kind of looking at them like this, just to make sure that I've got them nice and centered, and that looks pretty good. So you want to take, and I'm going to glue or put glue on this entire section here. And again, I told you my bottle is being naughty. Just keeps being very erratic with the amount of glue that's popping out. So, but with this piece here, you want to make sure that you get glue out to the very edges here, because we don't want those peeling back at all. Okay, so make sure you got it all the way out like so. And this is the underside. This is, if you're using paper, this would be your texture side. That's your main side. This is the underside of this piece. And just get that nice and centered there. And if it helps, kind of fold these over again just to make sure they're nice and flush there. Okay, nice and centered, nice and flush. And it did pretty good. Could I have done better? Maybe. All right, now I'm gonna wait a few moments while this really sets, because we're gonna be kind of tugging this thing a little bit. Okay, so there's our handle, and now that I've got my paper on there, and actually while it's still kind of setting, I'm gonna give this a little bit of a train, just to kind of get it into its rhythm. And the underside, you're gonna just kind of feed through the little slit there, like so. Okay, we're gonna take that and we're gonna glue it to the inside here, like this. Okay, so let's take our glue. Make sure that this piece here is all the way in, right up to the little score mark area there, and then just press that over. Same with this side. Okay, and we can push that down. Okay, there we go. Handle looks nice. Now ultimately, we can kind of shape this handle however we want. I don't want to do too much with it just yet. And then finally, we can take these pieces here and just get those glued down. And of course, you want to focus your attention on making sure that you get that glue out to the very edge so that the edge is not peeling up. Okay, and there we go. And just hold that down in place. If you're using these specialty materials like I am, you're gonna probably need to be a little more patient with it. There we go. And the other side. Right out to the very edge. Just make sure it's nice and centered. And just press that down into place. Oh boy. Hello, glue. What's up with you? Let's clean that off before it sets. I'm just using the other side of my pick-me-up tool to kind of scrape off some of that glue. I must have pushed down real hard because it just kind of oozed out, but that's fine. It's going to dry clear anyway, so. Okay, well there you go. There's our little handle now. And really all that's left to do, well, still got to put the little elastic on it, but that's fine. That will be easy enough. And you can kind of get that on there. See how that fits and sits. Okay, and you can see how that's going to get glued on. Just make sure that you've got this part on and it's sitting nice and flat before you commit to gluing this thing down. So it might help to just to kind of make sure that it's nice and flat up at the top and put it face down and then just flip this over like that. And let's get our glue on here. And you do want to focus on some perimeter work here. We want this whole thing to sit nice and flush all the way around. Oh geez, glue. All right, this is like the worst glue that worst glue job I've ever done on camera. So anyway, hope you guys are enjoying this because I make mistakes too. Okay, and that is not looking great, but it's fine. This part's it's going to be glued down anyway, so I'm not worried about how it looks inside. Okay, and I'm going to just need to give this thing a little bit more love here. Okay, there we go. So back to the original plan of just making sure that the top sits nicely and evenly, and then you can just kind of fold this over onto the back, but just make sure the top is sitting on there nicely. Okay, and actually we're going to need to do it this way because it wants to kind of bow in, which is fine. And then just press down once it kind of gets its initial grip. There we go. Okay, and we can push that down now. Yay, Well, that wasn't so bad. I suppose we could have done the handle afterwards, but I don't think it really matters. I think it's just fine. Okay, there we go. So that's sitting nicely. It's closing nicely. It's nice and centered. That looks great, I think. Okay, so now remember this piece here that I was telling you about before. This is a little interior piece that we're going to use to sandwich our little elastic band in. And let's do that. So I'm not really sure how much of this we need yet, but we're going to find out. I'm going to slide this underneath my little brad here, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of figure out how much of this we need, just based on kind of looking. Okay, so I'm going to say probably, I'm going to cut off just a little bit here. Well, you know what? Let's tie this first. Tie it into a knot. Almost tie it, kind of halfway tie it, like just so that if you give it one more tug, it will stay. And you know what? I think that no matter what we do with this at this point, it'll be fine, because it depends on where it's glued. So I'm going to actually double knot this. And just to test this out, and I recommend you do this anyway, you're going to want to get some Scotch tape and tape the top part down. Okay, so we can take this off now. And I'm going to take and get my Scotch tape. This is like stronghold Scotch tape. And I'm going to tape this down right about here. Just make sure you got it nice and centered, which I don't. You could, if you wanted to, just use a magnet as an option, or some Velcro like I used in a previous project, but this is kind of, this is more traditional on the briefcase, well, some anyway. Okay, so that's nice and centered. And I'm just going to tape that down just because it's easier to hold it. Let's test it out. Whoops. That is actually almost enough. So the cool thing about having tape is that you can pull it down and just move it down a tad, just until you get enough of that resistance from the elastic. Okay, let's try that. There we go. Nope. Not enough resistance yet. So I'm going to bring it down even more. Okay, let's go down here maybe. There we go. I might have maybe brought it down too far, but we'll see. Nope, there we go. Okay, so you get the idea there, and then once your elastic is on there, you can take this piece and glue it down. Obviously, so let's just grab this piece here, and let's get our glue on here so we can cover up that little elastic piece and make everything look nice and seamless, polished, and finished. And this pretty much will wrap this project up. Okay. And just get it nice and centered. Make sure that that elastic is nice and centered in between that little point there. You should be able to see it there. Okay, give that a little bit of a pull. And then just press that down, especially around that area there. And just kind of run your fingers along the edges here. I may need to kind of maybe add a little bit more glue right here at this point. I do want this point to be nice and glued together, but actually that looks like it worked very nicely. There we go, and let's test it. Bam. Okay. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this project. I'm just playing with this elastic band. It's kind of thin. Maybe I'd use something a little thicker, but it does work. As long as it holds it closed, that's all we can really ask for. So that pretty much does it for this. Take a look at the final photo to kind of see where we place our little pearls, just to kind of jazz this thing up a little bit. And that is pretty much it. This will definitely fit a nice tie, some socks, maybe a gadget of some sort, whatever it is that you're going to get Dad. Or again, if you change this up for another occasion, whether it be a retirement gift, you know, it could be a new job, whatever it may be, we'd love to see your version of it. So if you do make this or any of the products from our new bundle, we'd love to see them. So visit us in the official group on Facebook by doing a search for Dreaming Tree Group. You can join myself and the 11,500 other dreamers that inspire us daily. And if you enjoyed the video, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That lets me know that you like crafting with me. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me, and I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.